Hello, my event friends. Welcome back to EvaTalk. I'm back again with a new episode, and today's guest is Lee Ali. Lee Ali is a leading expert in trade show marketing and attendee engagement. He has over a decade of experience in the industry, working with exhibitors worldwide to optimize attendee engagement and drive sales at trade shows. Lee is a sales strategist and speaker and is also a podcast host. He is known for his expertise in the use of promotional booth staff and for creating effective promotional campaigns and messaging that resonate with attendees. Lee is dedicated to helping exhibitors increase their ROI and lead generation through effective attendee engagement strategies. He's also a big advocate of technology and how it can be used to increase attendee engagement and drive sales. Welcome to the podcast, Lee. Thank you for taking out time and getting onto the talk.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the introduction. It's quite daunting when you put it, all those things that way. So no pressure then.
All right. So I think with this, I can start with my first question. Lee, can you tell us about your experience in trade show industry and how you help exhibitors optimize attendee engagement?
Sure. Like most people in the world of trade shows, I came into the world of exhibitions completely by accident. So I was actually at an event in Chicago as an exhibitor, and that's where I saw that there was a need for proactive attendee engagement, because if you go to any show floor, what you will find is that between 75 to 85% of exhibitors are being very passive. Okay, they're not being proactive in their engagement because the mentality that we have as exhibitors is that if we build a big, beautiful booth, that people will automatically come to our stand and they will actually talk to us. And in reality, that's hardly the case, because you are competing with a lot of exhibitors in the hall, okay? You're all competing for attention. And attendees are very selective as well, okay? And the other thing that we don't realize is that the attendees have different objectives to what the exhibitors' objectives are, okay? So an exhibitor wants to obviously promote their company and sell their products and services, whereas an attendee, they want to learn about new innovations, they want to get up to date with their industry in terms of what the latest trends are, and find tools and services that will actually benefit them in their day-to-day job. But the exhibitors are so busy selling that they don't realize that the attendees' goals are completely different. So this is where engagement actually falls down. And what we do is we look at, who the exhibitor's target audience is, okay, what their objectives are, and then align those to the objectives that their target audience will potentially have. And then hopefully what we can do is help them to achieve their objectives by engaging with the attendee how they want to be engaged with, okay? So this is the difference that we make when we work with our exhibitors.
It's probably merging the objectives of both the parties to, get
absolutely,
along.
Yeah. Because when you match your objectives with the audience objectives, that's when the magic happens.
Yes, exactly. All right. Now, I think we can talk about one more segment, and that is, could you please share some tips or strategies with event planners to increase attendee engagement at trade shows?
Sure. I think the first thing is understanding what your audience challenges and pain points are, okay? And then creating an experience that actually looks at those pain points and those challenges. Okay, so if the pain point is that your customers want to retain, for example, more customers, okay, in the long term, then obviously we want to focus on a customer service strategy. So you might have an experience that deals with engaging customers in a way that makes them feel happy, makes them feel wanted, and so on. So, so really looking at, what your attendees, your potential audiences' pain points are, and then create an experience that will actually educate them, okay, in terms of how to overcome those challenges or to meet their objectives. So that's the first tip, is to always relate your experience to the audience's wants and needs, okay? The second thing is make sure that your booth staff are fully trained, okay, and fully aligned with your objectives as well. And the third tip would be to say that allocate specific jobs to your booth staff. So based on their personality, okay. So if you know someone in your team is very good at taking a step forward and saying hello to everyone, and they don't feel that they will be rejected, or they won't feel that they will feel down if somebody says no to them, okay? Then what you do then is you put them at the front of the booth to actually engage and approach the attendees and start the conversations with them, all right? But if you have someone who doesn't like approaching people, but they're very good at knowing their products and services, so technically they might know everything about your product or service, okay? So then there would be a really good person to actually have as a product demonstrator, because the audience, the attendees, will actually have a lot of questions if they're interested in knowing more about your product. So it's important that you have the right person who knows your company, who knows your products and services, and then they can actually deliver a really good presentation with all the right details and answer all of the attendees' concerns or questions that they might have. Okay. And then my last tip would be to use the swag or the freebies and giveaways in the right way. Okay. Don't just give them to anyone and everyone who comes, and because you might attract the wrong kind of attendees to your booth, because they will be just motivated by wanting to have that freebie. Yeah. So the best way to do that is to give really good giveaways as a reward for coming onto the booth and engaging in conversation. Okay. So as a thank you, because that makes the conversation more memorable, and it also shows appreciation for their time, okay, that they've actually come and spent at the booth to have that conversation. So what you will actually have is you'll be able to close the conversation in a much positive way, because one thing I always say is that the last impression that you leave with an attendee is always a better impression than the first impression, because the last impression is what they will remember you by, okay? So if you give them a gift as a thank you, then obviously that will actually raise their awareness of the conversation that you've actually had with them.
Yeah. So I think there was one very important point that you raised, and I think we should all implement that, is assigning roles according to the personality of people, because, that's going to get us the best value out of what we are trying to implement. So that was very essential, and I think we should be looking forward to doing more of it. All right. Now with this, there's my next question. What is the importance of audience segmentation and targeting in trade show marketing, and how it can be effectively achieved?
Sure. Well, if you think about the typical trade show floor, okay, if you have a typical show maybe has anything between 5,000 to 10,000 attendees, all right? And you as an exhibitor, okay, you will actually have maybe 200, 300 people visiting you, and not all of them will be potential clients straight away. Okay,
Yeah.
so the figures I think are that in any given hall, there will be 3% who will be ready to do business with you. There will be 67% who are in the market, but they just need to be convinced. Then
Yes.
there are 30% of attendees who will never ever do business with you, no matter what
Yeah.
you do, no matter what you say. Okay, so they are not your target audience. So the idea then is that what you need to do is segment that 3% and that 67%. Okay, so the 3% is going to be your hot leads. Okay,
Yes.
so for example, a mistake that a lot of exhibitors make is that they will collect 100 business cards and then they will go back to the office and they will give the same treatment. Okay, and it might be that the best lead might be card number 98. So it takes you
Yes.
98 calls to get to that person. Okay. Whereas if you segment, what that means is that you give priority to that 3% who could be your potential quick wins. Okay. So people that you can go and do a proposal with straight away. You can have a discovery call with them, and you can get a deal faster with those people than you will with that 67%. Okay. So these are what we call in the segmentation, these are what we call sales qualified leads. Okay. So I want everyone to remember that there are two types of leads that you can get at a trade show. One is sales qualified leads. The other one is marketing qualified leads. Okay. Okay, so the difference is that a marketing qualified lead is someone who's not ready to do business with you yet, but they would love to be on your database, okay, so that they can learn more about your company. So when they are ready to do business, you're at the forefront of their mind, okay, because they might not have a need now, but when they're ready to do business, all that marketing that you do to them in terms of the newsletters, inviting them to your webinars or your seminars, okay,
Yes.
getting them to download your ebooks and white papers, okay, all that is marketing, and that is stuff that you can actually use to market to those leads who are not quite ready to do business with you yet. So it's important that when you actually collect all your leads, or you actually have a program to segment those leads automatically. Okay, so when your salespeople or your booth reps are talking to people, they can segment immediately. Okay, is it a sales qualified lead or is it a marketing qualified lead? And then what you can do is you can process them accordingly. Okay, in the data capture. So, and then the other advice I would give is set up your lead capture in a way that you can actually segment automatically whether it's a sales qualified. So you may have some qualification questions that make them a sales qualified lead or a marketing qualified lead. So if that can be done automatically, it saves the team a lot of hard work going back to the
Yes.
office and then having to go through all
Segmented.
of the leads manually. Okay,
Yeah.
and then you also need to think about how you're going to allocate those leads when you go back to the office. Okay, is it going to be the reps who are actually at the booth who are going to follow them up? Is it going to be your telesales team or your account management team that follows them up? So you need to decide these things, before you go to the trade show.
No. So I think we learned again a new thing about sales and marketing kind of leads that we can accumulate through trade shows. That was nice. Now, with this, I come to my next question, and that is, what are the biggest mistakes businesses make when exhibiting at trade shows that can harm their ROI and lead generation?
That's a tough question. There's having walked the exhibition show floor for the past 15 years, the big mistakes that we see is that the booth reps not being proactive. okay, in terms of being very passive, talking to each other, okay, because if your booth reps are talking to each other, what that means is that the attendees are walking past because they see the team is busy in conversation, and they don't want to interrupt a conversation. Okay, so um, how people can actually remedy that is by training their booth teams to make sure that they're only doing one of two things. Okay, either talking to an attendee or getting
Yes.
ready to talk to an attendee. Okay, if they're doing anything else, they should not be doing it on the booth. Okay, so that means no chit chatting with colleagues, no eating lunch on the booth. Okay, and no closed body language like like cross arms and staring into like thin air and things like this.
Yeah.
Okay, so your psychology of your booth staff is very, very important. Okay, so make sure that your team is being very proactive and always talking or looking for attendees to talk
Leads.
to. All right.
Yes.
The second mistake I would say that a lot of exhibitors make is not actually understanding who their target audience is, okay, and not actually having experience on the booth that basically educates the attendees in terms of what you do, okay. A third element is uh, this is kind of a counterintuitive mistake, really, because as exhibitors, we think it's all about us because we've spent a lot of money on the booth. Okay, we built a very nice booth, and we think that it gives us the right when we approach an attendee to start talking about us. Okay, so
Yes.
and what I do is when we talk to our customers, we say, don't talk about yourself for the first 3 to 4 minutes. Okay, put the attendee first. Okay, so you can do things like breaking the ice. Okay,
Yes.
so don't talk anything about work or business. Okay, but just have a personal approach. Okay,
Yeah.
so you can compliment them on something, on their dress or on their tie. If they're holding a freebie from another booth, talk to them about that. Okay, so just be very personally approach and put the attendee first, break the ice, and then talk about business because exhibitions are about people buying from people. Okay,
Yes.
and it's very important that when you engage with an attendee, that it's a personal, human-led approach and not just sell, sell, sell. Okay, so you don't
Yes.
need to be aggressive. And one of the things that we found, especially in Asia, is that the sales reps or the booth reps can get very aggressive in terms of approaching the attendees.
Yeah.
Okay, and there's no need to be aggressive because as long as you're human and you engage people on a human level, then that's when again the engagement magic happens. Okay, because people need to realize that it's a people environment. Okay, so people buy from people. They don't buy from the kiosks. Okay, they don't buy from the booth. They don't buy from leaflets. Okay, they buy because of the relationships, especially in the business to business
Yes.
sectors. Yeah. All right. So I think it's making sure to avoid the biggest mistake is that you actually have a human to human experience on your booth.
So I think something that we can summarize it as, putting the other person first, their
Yeah.
need first, and then going ahead with selling off your product. That
Yeah.
was a great, great, great advice that you've shared with us, Mr. Ali. I think with this, we can come to our next question, and that is, what are the latest innovations and trends in trade show technology that could benefit exhibitors?
That's a very good question. I think one of the best trends out there at the moment is augmented reality and virtual reality experiences because these are very useful for companies that are used to taking big, heavy equipment. Okay. It's also very useful for companies that promote like venues or places, because what it allows you to do is actually create a virtual experience of your products
Yes.
or services. Okay. And you don't actually have to take all of this heavy machinery all the way from the UK to the Middle East, or from the Middle East all the way to the US, and so on.
Yes.
For international exhibitors, it helps you to save a lot of money in terms of taking heavy machinery. So if you've got medical equipment, for example, you can actually create an augmented experience or a virtual reality experience. And actually showcase your products and services in a very educational way as well. Okay, so I
Yes.
think that's the first thing. The second thing again is the data capture apps. Okay, that are actually available now. You can create personalized forms. Okay, there is one particular piece of technology that now allows you to leave voice notes with an overview of the conversation. You know how we always struggle when we're talking to someone and we're making notes, and we may
Yes.
write down something, we scribble something, and then we have to give the lead to someone else, and then we're trying to say, oh, what was the conversation about? But imagine having a tool where you can actually capture the data, but you can leave a
Yes.
voice note for the person who's going to take over the lead, and actually give them all the important pointers about that meeting. Okay, so it can
Yes.
also add as a reminder for you. So I think that's a fantastic innovation. And then there are technologies out there that can actually measure the footfall. So for example, if you have 3 or 4 different areas in a booth, okay, you can now place cameras that measure the engagement. Okay, so how long did people stay in that area? And then you can say, if you wanted to measure the effectiveness and you wanted to look
Any
at
particular.
future experience, okay, you can say, right, which product was the most popular, which one had more traction, okay? So if you have 3 products and one is getting no traffic at all, one area is getting no traffic, then you know that for future exhibitions, you
You
don't
can
need
remove it.
to you need to use it. So, and actually having this tracking software of, eyeballs or interactive
Yeah.
experiences, how many people engage with you, that makes measurement, so useful
Yeah.
for exhibitors for future events. So I think those are the 3 key trends that I've seen over the 12 months that allow exhibitors to actually, to not only engage with their prospects after the event, but during the event, they can actually measure the effectiveness of how good their exhibit was, and even how good their people were on the booth as well.
Yeah. All right. I think these were something that we have learned. And if we have not been to a physical, trade show in long, so of course, these are going to be really helpful for all our, event planners and management people that are going to plan new events. Thank you so much for all these tips. All right, though this is going to be my last question, but this is very, very important. And that would be lastly, what advice would you give to exhibitors looking to increase their engagement with attendees and drive sales at trade shows? I think half of it we've already got in the last question. That was a great one. All those technical, parts that you've explained very beautifully.
Sure. I think it's actually having a process. The key tips are plan your exhibitions well in advance. Okay.
Yes.
Do your research on your target audience and see if there are going to be enough of your target audience at the exhibition. So that means that when you select your trade shows, that you ask a lot of important questions to the organizer. Okay. Um, uh, Third thing is have a strategy for the engagement. Okay. So have a framework. So we use something called the Trade Show Engagement Optimization. So just like SEO, we call it TEO. Okay. And that is looking at your attendee journey, looking at upskilling your booth staff, looking at your metrics that you want to measure at the trade show. And lastly, the most important thing is the follow-up process, okay? Because that's where the gold is, okay? Because it's okay going to the trade show, collecting all these leads, but if you don't have an effective follow-up process, then all that time, effort, energy is all wasted because you've got nothing to show for it if you don't have the effective follow-up process. So, so those are my key tips to help you get the most out of exhibitions. Plan early, make sure that you exhibit at the right shows, and make sure that you have a framework that you work to. And lastly, always have a follow-up strategy for all your sales leads or marketing leads that you actually collect at the trade show.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ali. This was so good. Thank you for taking our time and giving us such great tips. I think I'm definitely sure because it's already January and people are going to plan their events all throughout the year. And with this talk, they are going to get a great ideas on how to plan, what all trends they can follow, and much more. Thank you again for joining us on EvaTalk. It was so good to have you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining in and watching this talk. I hope this was helpful for all of you. Do come back again, follow 10 times, and see you back with a new episode. Thank you.